So I grew up in an incredibly loving home. There was no abuse, there was no neglect. Everything was provided to me. There weren't any outside issues. There wasn't really fighting, anything of the sort. Like there weren't any problems that would, change the course of my life, that would navigate me towards drugs. There was no reason. That doesn't dictate, like my outside circumstances don't dictate my addictive tendencies. They don't dictate the route I will take. And what I noticed though is that despite all of that, for whatever reason, there was this inner turmoil. There was this dissonance that something wasn't quite right. I wasn't okay. No matter what I was doing, who I was with, things didn't seem quite right. Everyone else seemed to glide through life, and for me it was more difficult to replicate that. As much as I tried my hardest to be able to just integrate myself into society, to interact with other people, to do just normal things, it felt ever so difficult. And I had a number of different outlets to compensate for that. At first it was doing animation. It was, I got really into guitar, and while most people would see that as just an extreme passion, playing like 10 hours a day, for me it was the only thing I had to be okay. It was something to distract myself from the life that I saw, to distract myself from this feeling of uneasiness, unrest, and that's what got me by for the longest time. I have an interesting history in the sense that I didn't go into using drugs in an ignorant sense. I was the type to research drugs before I did them. And I don't know what necessarily drew me to it. It just seemed like an interesting facet of society. Funny enough, I had this experience when I was researching heroin, that at the bottom of the webpage in big red letters it said, the potential for addiction, the potential to overdose, for death, this and that. And I kind of accepted it and I disregarded it. Like it didn't necessarily faze me as, oh, I'm never gonna do that. Like I never drew any lines in the sand. I wasn't one to say, I'm not gonna try this substance or I'm not gonna try that substance. For me, it was just game on. And it was a while before I actually tried drugs after that experience. And it was simply just started smoking weed with my friends. It wasn't some profound, life-altering experience. In retrospect, it obviously was, but it was just something that made me feel more at ease. Like I felt connected with other people. When I was smoking weed and I was high, things just seemed to be okay. Like I was in an environment where I was comfortable, I could interact a lot better than I could before, I was funny, I was engaging. And again, things were just okay for once. That was my first spiritual experience, was I was just sitting there with my friends smoking and everything was all right. Like I had this seemingly innate inability to be able to lie, and every time I tried to, I'd start breaking down, I just could not lie. And when I started smoking weed, I noticed I would be a little bit more surreptitious about things. I would hide all my stash, I would hide my water bottle bong, this and that, and the lies started to come forward. I started to manipulate more. I started to put on this mask to be this grand actor, that I could control my life as long as you saw what I wanted you to see. But my parents eventually did catch on, and they noticed some tendencies. They noticed the lies. They noticed how I'd be out all the time, or how I would smell like smoke or things like that. But again, there weren't really any problems. I didn't get arrested, I didn't go to prison, I didn't get shot, nothing like that. What I thought society had told me would happen wasn't happening. I was really into playing guitar, I was really into jazz. All of my idols were junkies by trade. That's just what they did, and jazz seemed to come second for them. But those were the people I looked up to. And a normal individual, most drug users who are musicians, they seem to succeed, or they just die out, but that won't happen to me. And again, that was another delusion that I had, is that I'll just disregard the possible consequences and focus on the effect that it produces, which for me, I felt more creative. I felt like I can engage with individuals better. I saw all these benefits. I can sleep better, this and that, and just all these justifications. And again, that was just the first part of the journey. And I kind of honed into that for the rest of my addiction. I had pawned all my things, I'd stolen from my parents, taken their credit cards, this and that, and it just got to the point where I was out of money. I was tired of being dope sick all the time, because at least for me, I'm not a very good drug addict. I'm not very good at selling, I'm not very good at doing the drugs that are given to me, and or fronted to me. It wasn't necessarily about getting sober, it wasn't necessarily about changing my life or some profound experience. It was simply financial and physical. Because for me, what sober looks like at first was I can't function in the world. I can't watch TV. I can't interact. I can't play music. I can't do anything because I didn't have a solution, because the drugs weren't my problem. They were my solution. I was the problem. I was just medicating that with various substances, which happened to primarily be heroin. I went to a detox, and in this detox, they brought in meetings. They brought in 12-step meetings that gave their experience strength and hope. They showed me a life and a possibility to recover from it. Now, I didn't necessarily see that at first. What I saw was these individuals that seemed happy, did the exact same things I did, spoke the same language as me, and then they got to leave afterwards. After an hour, they got to leave, and I'm stuck in there withdrawing, walking in circles because I'm basically insane to a certain degree. And that kind of stuck with me. But of course, when I leave this facility, my very first thought is I need to save $20 for a dub. Any substance will eventually lead me back to my default. Heroin is my default. It's not necessarily my drug of choice. It kind of chose me, but that's what I always gravitate towards. And after that month-long stint, I can't go back to how it was in the first year of using. Because again, I have this thought process that if I just manage in the correct fashion, everything will go back to how it was before. I'll be able to work 2 jobs and be able to do dope. And again, I have so many delusions and so many justifications of what will work. I tried different detoxes, I tried different ways of avoiding it, this and that, but nothing seemed to stick. And I was finally so dope sick, and just I had my mom dragging me, and I say lovingly drag me along to different sober livings. I got placed in one, and I was just willing to try something different. I literally did not have the physical strength to do anything else. I was in an environment where people actually cared for me. I was in an environment where sobriety came first. It wasn't like it was before, and before it was just a bunch of drug users in active addiction trying to get sober. Here they were actually sober. Here they're actually working a program of recovery. Here they actually gave me the means, they gave me the tools to stay sober. And I was able to kind of make it through it. I had to tough it out for a long time. I had to just grit my teeth and move forward with it. I didn't agree with a lot of the principles. I didn't agree with the things they were telling me, but I didn't have another option because I had reserved myself to die a junkie. Like I'm the type of junkie that's gonna live a long, miserable life. Like that's just how my addiction was. And for me, that's a lot worse than just dying of a quick overdose. For me, living a long, miserable life addicted to heroin is far greater, greater reigns of despair. Luckily, I didn't have to go through that road as long as I continue the action necessary to stay sober. And the people around me with years and years of sobriety have taught me that and continue to show me how to stay sober and how to reintegrate myself into life. I feel as though I've become an entirely different person. Because like I said, when I was younger, like I couldn't lie. I had this innocence to me. And I can't necessarily say that I have any innocence today, but I have an understanding of my illness. I have an understanding of what I need to do. And today I'm able to live a full life. I'm able to interact with people again. I'm able to be a man of my word. And if I falter, which I do most of the time, I'm able to recognize that I'm happy with who I am today. There's a lot of work to be done, but I feel okay. I can sit here and there's a sense of calm, there's a sense of ease that I only got through heroin before. And I've been sober for a little over 3 years, and I can sit here and be at total comfort with myself and the world around me. And if there's any obstacles or issues that I face today, I know I can get through them. Like it's become an inherent part of my being that I know things will be okay. It's become in this innate sense that if I put the action necessary and I'm present in my sobriety and my recovery, things will be okay, like they always are. And before that, I thought that was a delusion. I thought that, the people that say it'll be okay, they don't really know, do they? But my experiences continually showed me that I have an experience. Not to sound redundant, but I have an experience today and I can appreciate it. Whether it's good or bad, it's just my perception of the situation. Doesn't matter your race, religion, creed, your upbringing. I've seen people of so many different parts of society come into recovery and stay sober. The only consistent thing I've found is the action. If I put in the action necessary to stay sober, I can stay sober. So really, recovery is for anyone that not even necessarily wants it or needs it. It's for someone who does it. That's what I've found. Because unfortunately, I've seen many people that wanted this and desperately needed it, but they didn't put in the action necessary. And again, I'm not the arbiter of recovery saying one way is the only way to get sober. There's a myriad of different ways to get sober, but it's simply putting in the action forth. To go out into the world and try something different, to take a suggestion. If that doesn't work, try something else. That's the biggest recommendation I can give for that.